So good afternoon, everybody. I hope you enjoyed lunch. Was lunch good? Does it get an applause? Okay, good. The cookies looked really, really good. I'm Donna Fluss, and I'm the founder and president of DMG Consulting, and we are a vendor-independent industry analyst and consulting firm. And today, I'm going to be discussing with you something I'm sure you haven't heard anything about. We're going to be talking about AI, right? But what we're going to be doing is concentrating on the practical aspects of AI as we apply it in the world of CX and contact centers, because while AI is gee whiz cool, right? It shouldn't be AI for the sake of AI, but instead AI for the sake of the benefits and contributions that it can make to our operating environment. In this case, we're concentrating a lot on contact center, but a lot of what works in the world of contact center, and when I talk about contact center, I'm talking about customer service, I'm talking about sales, I'm talking about marketing, I'm talking about collections, I'm talking about IT help desk. So I'm really talking about a very, very broad perspective. There are seats up front here. So it works for all of those environments, the stuff we're talking about. It works for customer service, so it also works for the back office in a lot of places. And for that matter, some of the stuff that we're talking about is also very relevant for just enterprises in general. Okay, so let's try that one. Now, there are 5 overarching themes, tailwinds essentially, that are relevant to today's conversation. In the world of CX, there are just tons of trends that are really exciting. Now, the first one is that we are in the midst of this AI revolution. Now, I've been in the market for over 40 years, and I have seen hundreds of technologies come and go. AI is not a technology, it's a grouping of 40, 50 different applications, but I have never seen anything like this, and I don't think I ever will again. It is nothing short of phenomenal, right? So 218 comes around, and nothing. No COVID either. Good stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, in Q1 of 218, you start to hear about AI. Now, the reality is AI has been around for a very long time. The first time somebody tried to sell me an AI application was about 40 years ago, and somebody had a knowledge management application, and it was a solution looking for a problem, and he said it was AI. Well, it wasn't AI then. It surely is now, at least the good ones. We are seeing the fastest introduction of applications. Typically, when an application comes to market, it takes about 20 years, right? So here's an AI-enabled application, speech analytics. How many of you are using speech or text analytics? Okay, so the underlying technology for that is NLP and NLU, right? And that is, by definition, an AI technology, and it burst into the commercial marketplace in 2003, and now 20 years later, it's now considered mission critical. Just think about what's happened in the 5 years since 2018, right? And it's not just that these applications are coming to market, it's that they actually work. Not all of them, but some of them. So related to that, customer data is a huge thing. So just out of curiosity, how many of you are from customer service, contact center environments kind of thing? Okay, so the majority. So you all know we have a huge amount of data about customers. We know more about customers in these environments than anybody anywhere else within an organization already, and that's a really strong statement. But yet, you know, when we come to share our data, because I've been trying to share data for decades, everyone says, no, it's okay, we don't need it. Well, guess what? They do need it, and they need it for all of the AI initiatives. Okay, then we get into the world of self-service. How many of your organizations are using self-service solutions? Okay, so let's ask a tricky question. How many of your companies have websites? Okay, so every single company actually has a self-service solution, right? But what's funny about self-service is that self-service, actually that is a good idea, I am thirsty, but self-service is now become the preferred way of getting help. Now, who here, like me, would prefer to do everything I can on self-service without actually having to talk to someone? And I know I was just teasing you about the phones, right?
I feel like that might just be a software trend, like developers are antisocial than everyone else. Do you think that's across the board?
Well, actually, I'll be happy to answer you, but then if you would, hold your question till the end.
Apologize.
But in regard to that, it's not just that. And it's actually,
antisocial.
no, it's not that everyone's antisocial, but self-service has become so good that we rely on it in a lot of different ways, and we expect it to work. When I place an order on a website, I expect that order to be able to be processed without my having to pick up a phone and then repeat everything that I did. When I place an order on an IVR, and for sure when I place an order on an IVA. And actually, along those lines, it's actually all generations. So it's boomers, it's millennials, it's Z generation, it's all generations who feel that way, and we're seeing a lot more of it. But what's interesting about it is that if you go back 10, 20 years, and I've been working in the area of self-service for a very, very long time, lots of other areas too, is the nicest thing they would say about it is that it was voicemail jail. And you guys can fill in what else it was called, right? So huge emphasis now in the area of self-service for a whole bunch of different reasons. If I'm in your way, let me try to find a spot I can stand. So then we also have something we've all heard way too much about, digital transformation, right? So, what's funny about digital transformation, notice no presentations on digital transformation, at least from what I saw, but we are just at the beginning of digital transformation. There's no question that digital transformation is about bringing digital voices into these operating areas, digital channels into these operating areas. But when you bring in a new digital channel, you have to bring in new policies and procedures and systems. But digital transformation isn't just about that. In a lot of cases, digital transformation is also about replacing operating systems that are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old in a lot of cases. And all of this is converging to do something that's just going to be absolutely phenomenal, which is changing enterprise dynamics. So going back a few decades, process engineers like me separated front and back office activities for economies of scale. We didn't have sophisticated workflow. Any workflow I had to build. We didn't have RPA, we didn't have automation, we didn't have AI. And so what we decided to do was to tether the agents in their seats because we could, and then we had people in the back office who wandered around and did whatever it is they did. But if we think about it from a customer perspective, right, if we can do everything at point of contact, right, we can increase FCR, so it's great for the customer, it's great for the agent who doesn't have to pray that when it gets to the back office it actually gets done, and of course it's great for the bottom line. So this is our backdrop. And with this as the backdrop, I'm going to tell you the AI story from the perspective of the contact center. And it won't start with once about a time. The AI story is that seemingly out of nowhere, everyone's talking about AI. Alrighty, right? One day, there's no AI on a website about a vendor. The next day, there's a lot of AI. And going back to 2018, it wasn't as if everything got AI enabled within a short amount of time. But the vendors started to invest. And when we talk about AI, as you all know, right, so lots of conversations about generative AI. And for the world of service, generative AI is just a gift from heaven, right? Because it is the missing link in so much of what it is we're doing. It's all about conversations. So generative AI and the LLMs, large language models, are critical for filling in all the gaps that we often have when we're trying to do all types of different things in these operating environments. But there's all types of other AI, right? Interaction analytics, speech and text analytics, natural language processing understanding, right? NLG, that's where Gen AI comes in, natural language generation, right? We've got deep learning, machine learning, deep neural networks, computer vision, and another 30 different types of AI. But the story, while what we've seen in the past couple years has been phenomenal, is just starting to unfold. And what's really exciting about it is that you are limited, we are all limited only by one thing at this point, our imaginations. Now, we've got all this complexity coming into these operating environments, right? So we've got over 45 different systems and applications that we commonly use in contact centers. And every single one of these vendors is introducing different types of AI to enhance their application. Now, this is also really interesting because in some cases, these vendors have not updated these applications significantly in decades. Part of the excitement about what AI is bringing into the operating environments is that it is driving an entire refresh of the technologies and applications that we use. Now, contact centers are the second most sophisticated, technically sophisticated operating environments in companies, second only to trading floors, right? So people, take them for granted. They think it's a simple operating environment, but it's not. And as it is, a lot of these systems essentially work against each other, even when they should be working together. So let's start at the beginning and think about a concept called adaptive real-time intelligent routing, right? So this is where we're using, it could be automation, it could be smart automation, it could be AI, to make each interaction that comes in smarter and smarter, right? So as each one comes in, it gets better at what it is it's doing. And this is just an example of the issue. So now workforce management, right? One of the core capabilities, actually second to some of the AI stuff, was the most complex application in these operating environments. And so we forecast and we schedule. Alrighty. And we typically schedule a week in advance. It could be on the same day. We make some shifts in it. But we've got our schedule set, and now all of a sudden, we got this adaptive real-time intelligent routing thing that is negating everything that we scheduled. Well, we've got a little bit of a problem here. So in order to address this, contact centers, and for that matter, all operating environments, need to have some kind of orchestration layer or a puppeteer that decides what's going to go and what's going to fire and when. And another way of saying this is that if you want to do AI in your operating environment, any for that matter, but for sure for contact center, you've got to make sure that they're orchestrated. It's also a good practice to try to collaborate with other parts of organizations, but we in contact centers know that that's not always possible. So now, let's go through 4 applications that are real and adding value. So we saw already that a lot of you are using self-service solutions. How many of you are using IVA or conversational AI? Have it in production? Okay. Now, so we had about 10 people raise their hands. Some of you, I think, are from the same company since you're sitting together closely there. And so this is real fun, what's going on here. So IVR has been around now in different forms for about 40 different years, and it's fantastic. The underlying technology, NLU and NLP that we use, is the same technology that we use with CAI in a lot of cases. The difference is, of course, that NLG piece, the natural language generation. But when you're building an IVR, and I've built tons of them, and I'm enhanced even more of them, I speak 20 verticals very, very fluently. What you build is essentially a 4x4, and I'm not talking about the truck, right? So you've got 4 options. Within each, you can go down 4 levels. Yes, you can go to 5 or 6, but that's not a good practice. And even, so that's fine. And these are workhorses. Some of these IVRs automate 50, 65, 85. I know of one that automates 95% from a retail bank outside of the United States. So they do a lot of work. They're great, and they have been great. But the catch with a lot of the IVRs is it's a one-time project. I have worked with, as I said, many, many companies trying to help them enhance their IVRs. This is before CAI broke into the marketplace. And it's really hard to get a budget, so it really is like a one-time project. So, we get a chance to update our grammars and our pace and maybe add an option or two. But then when we go to the CFO and we say, hey, here's a business case, we want to do more of this, the CFO says, we have one of these. Let's do something else. Okay, so we get turned down. At least they get turned down way too often. But now, the world of CAI is really different. This is the world of AI. And it's exciting because it solves one of the problems, which is, how do we even know what it is we don't know? And how is it that we find the right answer for issues that were asked in one way and need to be answered in another, right? Now, there's a lot of similarities. When it comes to the self-service solutions, we have to find and identify our intents for CAI or IVA, it's synonymous, just like we do with self-service solutions, IVRs. But the difference is we don't have to identify all of them and the hundreds of different ways that they can be asked and the hundreds of different ways that they can be answered. And so this is a great opportunity for organizations. Now, the coolest part about all this is that prior to November of 2022, right, so OpenAI announces its ChatGPT, and if you haven't played with it, and I'm sure there are some people who haven't, it's really a lot of fun. So I do suggest you take a look and play with it. And that is, as I said, the missing link to how do you fill in all these voids in the world of CAI. So this is a game changer for organizations. Now, in regard to Gen AI-based CAI solutions, there's probably less than 100 of them in the market today. It's all new. It's a combination of both science and art, and the potential is great. The payback from these solutions is running from, let's say, 6 months to about 12 months. And the catch will be, how do you get approval for them? So if you write up a business case, which you do need to write up, and you try to sell it as an enhanced voice self-service solution, you're probably not going to get approval very easily. But if you try to sell it as an AI initiative coordinated with other AI initiatives, you should be able to get approval very, very quickly for the application. Now, the other side of the coin. And this side of the coin is helping our agents. So, Agent Assist. Agent Assist is actually a huge category of products. It's NBA, Next Best Action, not the basketball league. It's real-time guidance, ITG. It's virtual assistants. It's virtual agents. It is real-time speech analytics. And the concept, right, and we heard some presentations on this, is your agent is sitting there, and wouldn't it be nice if the agent has a little buddy, and that buddy is sitting on their shoulder, it's sitting on their chair, obviously it's watching, and it's watching everything that person does, it's listening to everything that person does. So instead of the agent having to listen and find the information, the Agent Assist product brings it up. So if you say, somebody calls and says, or emails, I'm asking about case number 12345, boop, it pops it right up. If the agent is hovering over an area of their screen, it can bring up the policy and procedure. So it can bring up all the information that the agent needs on a timely basis, but it's up to the agent to decide whether they want to use that information or not. But now they have it so that the agent can spend their time helping the customer instead of looking for information. I was talking to somebody a couple minutes ago about credit unions. So credit unions typically have somewhere between 20 to 40 different systems that their agents have to go to in order to find information. Training people for these environments is next to impossible. When it comes to Agent Assist has proven itself very effective for sales and collections, right? Because there's only a limited number of objections that people come up with. It's more complicated on the customer service side. So the way to play this one out is, classically, right, we train our agents to be able to handle the 20%, 20% of the issues, which represents typically about 80%, right, the classic 80-20 rule of what it is. But now we also have a way of bringing up that information and delivering it to them on a timely basis. Now, of interest, the payback on this is a little bit longer. And it's longer because putting in place the playbooks actually is a little bit more complex and takes more time. But like the IVA, the technology is available and it's working. Now, just curiosity, do any of you have an Agent Assist product in production in your shop? Raise your hand. Okay, that's pretty amazing because it is relatively new, but of course it makes sense because you're at the Kore event, and Kore is one of the founders of these capabilities. In 5 years, the whole world of contact center is going to change. And it's going to change in ways that are really great for both our employees, our customers, of course, and for our bottom line. Now, third one is after interaction, after call summarization automation. And is anybody using this one? Okay, this is a wow, because I talk about these things all the time, and we had about 8 people raise their hands on this. So, right, in contact centers, 45 different systems and applications, and we have automated almost everything that our agents can do. Right, we have some form of automation, except the one thing we hadn't automated was the after call, after interaction wrap up, and then the summarization. Now, I've had the pleasure of reading thousands of these after call summaries, after interaction summaries. Sometimes they're so funny, I find myself crying in laughter because agents are doing their best, but agents aren't writers. Right? They're there because they want to help customers. And what we ask them to do in 15 seconds or maybe 30 seconds, we ask them to identify the reason the person called. Now, the person called about 4 or 5 different things, but they get to wrap up one, which is why when you look at wrap-up codes, they're all 99. Everybody know what 99 is? Miscellaneous, right? And they're absolutely right. And then you read these things. And the summaries are really, they're wonderful. They're really creative. Sometimes they're just alphabet city. Other times, there'll be 1 or 2 sentences. And it really wouldn't matter if we didn't care about the CX and the overall customer journey, because the next time that person contacts the organization, the customer is going to end up having to start all over, which we know is one of the things that customers dislike more than almost anything else. So if we can come up with a way to automate this process, then it can really improve so many aspects of what we do in these service organizations. First of all, it's great for the agent because that agent isn't going to get yelled at again. Why do I have to repeat myself? I just called an hour ago. It doesn't make any, it's not fair, you're wasting people's time. And by the way, they're right about all that, but in most call contact centers, there's no choice. if they want to help the person. Now, there's different ways that these after interaction summaries are working, right? In some ways, they just show up and they get posted to the CRM application or customer tracking application. In other cases, they get delivered to the agent. The agent gets to make some changes in them, and then they can post it to the CRM application. But I mean, it's really just downright cool because they show up with about a 2-second latency, and then you get to post it and see what's going on and move on. This is a game changer, actually, for a lot of contact centers. Now, I've actually gotten pushback from some contact centers about this, which I find really, really interesting, because the payback on this is the quickest of anything I've seen in years. It's 3 to 6 months, because you can cut as much as 50% of the time it takes while improving the quality. So, I mean, if you're looking for, one quick hit for the year, this is a quick hit. Now, the last of the 4 that I'm going to talk about is the one that I foreshadowed, knowledge management. How many of you are using knowledge management in your contact center? Okay. Now, knowledge management has a long, long history. It's been around for decades. And its potential has always had great potential. I mean, really great potential. But, if you go back a couple generations and, you were managing a contact center, and so let's say you required your technical support staff to go in and use the knowledge base for everything that comes in. The problem with it was that it actually lengthened the AHT, the average handle time. So we held our reps accountable for handling things within a certain amount of time, and then we handcuffed them by making them do this. Now, what's fun about this is that in a lot of organizations, I actually would, as I went through the call centers, I would sit with agents, and I would actually see them go to Google over their own internal knowledge base, because all-knowing Google had information that their knowledge base didn't. I mean, it was really, a lot of fun. Then, of course, companies turned off Google for their agents, which maybe did or didn't make sense. No guardrails on that one, right? But the knowledge management is key. The current generation of knowledge management is excellent. It has been AI-enabled and automation-enabled in so many different ways. First of all, we no longer have the classic garbage in, garbage out problem. We also, Gen AI, no longer in a lot of cases have the issue of how to seed the knowledge bases. Now, another reason, though, that knowledge management started to become so popular, if I may, is because it was used in the early days of AI, right, going back 4 or 5 years, to seed a lot of the AI initiatives. So it finally got some attention, right? So as it got attention, more companies bought it. As more companies bought it, the vendors started to invest in it. And the current generation is just amazing. The search capabilities, the identification of what works and what doesn't work, and outdated data. But still, these are heavy lifts, but critically important for many different reasons. It's helpful for our agents and, of course, for seeding our AI initiatives. But the payback on this is somewhere between 12 months to 24 months. And so, the name of the game, though, is so how do you get approval? So CFOs today are really funny. So they are looking for projects. If you want to get something approved quickly, then the payback needs to be within the first 12 months. And if not, within maybe 18 months, which is another reason why after post-interaction summarization is so powerful. But if you want approval for an updated KM solution, first of all, see if you can get some other departments to go in with you, because it's useful for many parts of the company. But also, I suggest that you combine it with one of the other initiatives that we talked about and present it that way. So now, let's continue on our AI story and how it's going to unfold within operating environments. So I've been in contact centers for 4 decades. And I have watched them change, maybe. But in fact, while the technology's changed a great deal over the years, they're pretty much the same. They are reactive operating environments. So 20 plus years ago, I wrote a book called The Real-Time Contact Center. And the concept behind the book was simple. And by the way, it's on Amazon if you want to get it. I'm sure I'll make 1 cent off of it. But it's a really, when somebody reaches out to your service organization, they're giving you a gift. They're giving you a gift of their time and their attention. And it's a question of what it is you do with that gift. Almost all service organizations today cut back to reactive policies and procedures. That's what we train our reps to do. And it makes sense in some ways because they just have to use whatever it is they've been trained to do. But it really shouldn't be that way. We're finally moving into an environment where our agents can be more responsive because we do have some real-time guidance starting to come in. We have better knowledge management solutions, right? We are handling a lot of the routine type of interactions with CAI solutions. Okay, great. So getting there, right? The next phase will finally be the introduction of real time, which is where our reps are going to be able to personalize each of the different conversations that they have, discussions, whatever they happen to be. And again, game changer, changing the dynamic of these environments, the kind of reps we need, the kind of technology we need, and then let's move on. Because we need to get to the point where we are at least proactive, right? Where we're not just answering, but we're actually delivering a unique experience, the experience that the customer really is looking for. Alrighty, good. But where we're moving to is predictive. 20 years from now, our contact centers will be predictive analytics engines. It will be run by AI. A lot of this is concept that we introduced to the marketplace over 20 years ago. So in terms of being predictive, we knew that it had to become that because of how complex these are. What we didn't know was how we were going to get there. And the answer is AI. So now, getting back to the practical. And this is how do you get started with this in a contact center? Now, to begin with, there was a little card on every seat, and that card will take you to a report from our firm, DMG Consulting. And there's a report, the Guide to AI Enabling Your Contact Center. It's a full industry report that goes into depth on each of these areas in about 13 different technologies and applications, all of which are ready for, all but one of which are ready for prime time today. And the report will go through the technologies used. Of course, it's going to give the use cases of what's been used and what can be done, and also talk about what's coming down the pipe. But when it comes to getting started with AI, since you're Kore, I'm not going to ask, you're all here at the event, how many of you are using this. If at all possible, I strongly suggest that when you start to do these things, that you try to find and work with the COE, the Center of Excellence for AI within your company. Now, you have this, some of you have taken pictures, get the presentation. I'm now going to move away, I'm going to move away from this slide for a couple minutes. So contact centers, we often have a problem. We can't get the investments that we need, even though these are some of the most important areas in enterprises, right? The contact center interacts with customers more than anybody else. So if you can, tie into the COE. But if you can't, folks, go it alone. Build your business case and bring in the applications that you need. And as classically is the case with this, Start small. Start with 1 or 2 things. Baseline it, and then pilot it, and then based on your pilot, right, build your business case and deploy it. It is extremely likely that once you do your thing, right, then you will be invited more to the table than we often are with other types of with initiatives. Now, if you're just looking for the classic way to go about doing this, I mean, this is what I would suggest. But very, very importantly, as you start to work on these initiatives in your service organization, please communicate with your staff and communicate frequently. And the reason is because of this. So now, let me ask the next obvious question. And I'm going to ask a second question so you know this is a setup. So how many of you think that the goal of AI is to reduce the number of agents or employees within your company? Raise your hand. Okay. Okay. And how many think that the purpose of putting AI in these operating environments, improving our self-service, is to augment the agent experience? Okay. Way to go, audience. Really thrilled to hear that. But the answer is it's actually both. Executives have a fiduciary responsibility to reduce their operating costs. They also have a fiduciary responsibility to deliver a great customer experience. And AI is that amazing thing that's going to help us get there. Now, in regard to decreasing staff, I mean, these operating environments are very, very complex, right? And it's difficult for most organizations to get the quantity and quality of reps that they need. So, the volume of interactions coming into them, right? So the volume of voice calls is decreasing in some organizations. By the way, it's also increasing in others. But voice isn't going away at the same time as we have all these digital channels coming in. So we've got more and more and more interactions coming into organizations. So we have no choice. We need self-service to do a much better job of what it is that they've done than in the past. And in fact, we need RTG and all the agent assist products to be able to give the guidance that is necessary to our agents, because in fact, we can't get enough people to staff these environments. So without AI, a lot of these operating environments are in trouble. Now, in regard to AI, how many of you started as an agent? Anyone in the room? Okay. So the only given we have in a contact center as an agent is we have no idea what the next inquiry is going to be about. It's going to come in, and just think about how amazing it is to have a little buddy that's sitting there and brings up the information so you can spend your time helping them. It's a totally different experience. Now, this conversation came up last night as I was standing around having a drink with somebody. And they said, people should pay their agents more. Okay? It's a good idea. So I've been on over 1,000 contact center sites. And I don't know, about 10, 15 years ago, somebody came over to me and said, most of our agents are on food stamps. And I said, why are your agents on food stamps? They said, because we don't pay them enough for them to be able to put food on the table. Now, of course, it makes sense, right? In some ways. I mean, by the way, this is one of my big pet peeves, which is why I'm bringing it up right now, because, but again, it came up last night. And what's happened is in organizations, right, contact centers, front and back office, have very large number of people. So they work hard in order to keep the costs down. That's fine. The complexity of what these people are doing is pretty amazing. I mean, if you want to have fun and somebody will let you, just try to take an agent call. just try to get the hello and the greeting out of your mouth. The first time I did, I couldn't even get the whole greeting that I thought was really a great greeting. You know, welcome to bank, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, I see your point, everybody. We're going to come up with a different greeting, right? But it's a really difficult job. But if we give them the tools, it's going to be great. Now, as we give them the tools and as we improve the self-service capabilities and we automate anything that doesn't require the cognitive capability of human beings, the job of the agent is going to change tremendously. And we need to compensate these people for doing what is going to be one of the even higher value jobs. Because these are the people who build your brand, who make your brand, who give the tone for your brand. Of course, we've got marketing, right? We've got that. But these are the people who live it every day. Now, what's also going to happen, and this is also really cool, and of course it depends on how you decide to roll this out, is that there's a lot of jobs that are going to be created as we bring more automation and technology into these operating environments. And there's nothing better than vertical experts to staff a lot of those jobs. So huge opportunity here. So now, I'm going to wrap up with the takeaways here, and there are 6. And no surprise on any of these. The first is AI is already in most contact centers. How many of you are using some form of cloud-based solution? Okay, so lots of cloud-based solutions. Every single one of those solutions has AI, and it's been AI enabled. You may not be using it yet, but it's there. So you've already got it in your operating environment. Secondly, we've got to pay attention to the productivity and efficiency of these operating environments. And the technology of the century is AI because of its ability to automate and provide intelligence. And we need those capabilities. Number 3, AI is real, right? It didn't take 20 years. Now, not every application. Some of the applications are just starting to get going. And while the stuff that we see today is great, you have seen nothing compared to what's coming down. Gen AI, right? The technology of the last 2 years, phenomenal. And it is. But you've seen nothing for what's about to come out in the next few years. But don't wait, right? A lot of these applications work today and will make significant contributions, but they're going to keep getting better and better, which is one of the gifts. AI will end up reducing the need for resources doing some traditional low-level jobs, but its primary purpose in our service organization is to augment the agent experience. Now, coming back to what I was saying, if you can coordinate your AI initiatives with the COE throughout the enterprise, it's absolutely the way to go, because then you get to use shared LLMs, you get to contribute your data to the LLMs, really valuable. But if you are getting put at the bottom of the list, then go it alone and do it on your own. Don't wait for someone to say, okay, now's your turn 5 years from now. And as I've been saying, AI is real and embrace it, and real. So please embrace it, adopt it, because it's not going away and it's your future. So with that, thank you, and any questions? Anybody have a question? I know no questions at all? Yes? Most everything I talked about, what?
Front office, a la, IVR, IVA. Where do you see this going from the back office, which historically is always the black box of all contacts should be working?
Well, actually, that's a fantastic question and very, very important question. So my 5th trend was actually about moving together and bringing back together the front and back office. That's number 1. And that doesn't mean eliminate the back office. So process engineers like me separated front and back office for economies of scale 40 years ago. Already, it made a lot of sense because we didn't have this technology. So number one, almost everything that I talked about, not everything, right, can be applied within the back office. That's number one. Number two, we can use automation and AI to basically complete a lot of the tasks instead of starting it in one place and finishing it in another. So a lot of these applications can be used in the back office and other operating departments.
So you see it as a consolidation long term?
Well, I think it's going to be, well, first of all, we've been trying to drive that consolidation for a couple decades already in order to improve the customer journey. If you want to improve the customer journey, right, so every organization wants to improve the customer journey. In order to do that, you've got to trace the activities to the bottlenecks. And there are different bottlenecks in different places. So we can use a lot of this technology to facilitate that. So we can apply it like workflow automation, AI-enabled intelligence and AI-enabled workflow absolutely belongs in a lot of what we do in back office. By the way, I started in the back office. So it absolutely belongs in the back office, and then over time, we're simply not going to need as many people, and we can start to bring the journey together, which is going to be better for the customer, for the employee, as well as for the bottom line. Yeah?
Any insights just from transitioning IVR to IVA? So
Oh, a ton. Okay.
I'd be curious to know how you're thinking about mapping.
Okay.
So the same journey from IVR to
Well, to begin with, in terms of IVR and IVA, they're really similar, but they're totally different. That's to begin with. And so I'm in the middle of a CAI implementation as we speak. So I was on a call this morning about it. There's so many similarities, right? So most important, and the NLU and NLP, same technology in both of them. The difference is the NLG. And so Gen AI is the missing link on the NLG, right? So it gives source. But we've got to go through the same steps. Now, the catch is that when you start to say that, right, you still have to identify the intents, right? You have to do an intent study, hire somebody like me who comes in and just tells you the intents because, as I said, I speak 20 verticals, fluently. But you still have to identify, you capture your interactions, you identify the intents, you go through the process. But that's where the similarities end in terms of what it is. So first thing is you got to get approval. So write it up as an AI initiative, not as a not as a IVR initiative. And then there's a lot of the steps are similar to there. And then at this point you need to have the expertise to help you move it in the direction. But you're going to do iframes. You're going to figure out the scripts. Very, 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 very importantly, you all heard about this morning, you've got to make sure your LLM is targeted, tagged, verticalized, cleaned, no hallucinations. I mean, unless you want to have hallucinations because it could be fun. But there's a lot to it. So, at this point, I'm recommending, most organizations, I mean, obviously you can turn to us, we can help you with that, but also the vendors have a lot of expertise where it exists. Keep in mind, one vendor may have done 30 of these, another vendor may have done 5 of these. I mean, it's all new, so it's a combination of both science and a huge amount of art. And then a little bit of lady luck. Anybody else? We're good? Thank you, everyone.